welcome back to Knitting 102. In this tutorial, we're going to be talking about increasing, or how to make your fabric bigger. Increasing is usually done on the right side of your fabric, not always, most often. And by the right side of your fabric, I mean the opposite of the wrong side of your fabric. So the side of your fabric that is going to be facing outward for people to look at, not the side that's going to be facing inward towards your body. Most often you will see increasing and decreasing as well done on the right side. There are a number of different ways to increase. They will change depending on whether you want the increase to be visible or not, depending on the direction of your fabric, and sometimes depending on the kind of fabric that you are creating or the kind of finished garment or accessory that you are creating. So since this is Knitting 102, we're going to go ahead and stick with the basics, and I'm going to teach you the two most basic ways to increase or add stitches to your fabric to make it bigger. So again, I'm working on the right side of my fabric. So you can see the stockinette stitches are facing out. That's the back. And I'll just come in a few stitches from the edge. And the first way to increase is something you have probably already done accidentally as you're learning to knit, and it is called a yarn over. This is usually abbreviated YO. And it simply means that usually when you are working the knit stitch, you're holding your yarn behind. To create a yarn over, you're going to bring your yarn in front and then knit the next stitch. So now you can see I have created a new stitch. You can also see that I've created a hole. This is called an eyelet. It is used decoratively. So in lace garments, or sometimes just an elegant detail for something, you're going to make these holes on purpose by using yarn overs to increase. However, most of the time, you want your increases to be more invisible than this. You don't want your fabric full of holes. So I'm going to show you the other way. The other most basic way to increase. So first, let's show you the eyelet again, the yarn over. Instead of holding my yarn behind, I'm going to bring it in front of my right hand needle, then knit the next stitch, and now I have created an extra stitch and of course that hole. So in cases where you do not want the increase in your fabric to be seen, you can use a number of other increases, and this is the most basic one. It is not completely invisible. So if you are looking for it, you're going to find it. You'll notice a difference in the fabric. And a lot of times you will see the person who has designed your pattern will line these increases up so they make sort of a neat decorative element to the fabric. This one is called the knit front and back, and it is usually abbreviated KFB. And this is a way to make two stitches from one stitch. So to work this, I'm going to knit my next stitch just like I normally would, but I'm going to leave it on the left hand needle. I'm not going to slide it off yet. Then I'm going to take my right hand needle, turn my fabric this way a bit, and find the back of that stitch. This is called the back loop. And I'm going to knit the same stitch again through the back loop. And now I'm going to slide it off my needle. So you can see that I have made two stitches now where there used to be one. You can also see this little bar here. It almost looks like a purl stitch. So that is what you're going to see on the right side of your fabric when you use this increase. And as I said, knitting pattern designers will sometimes line these up in a neat order to add a decorative element. So they're not the most invisible way to increase or add a stitch, but they are it is one of the easier ways. So let me show that again a little further down. So normally I'm going to knit the next stitch. This is the front loop because it's in front, and I do my normal knit stitch, but I leave that stitch on the needle, move my right hand needle to the back, turn my fabric so that I can see the back loop of that stitch, insert the needle there through the back loop, and do that knitting motion again. All right, and again, I've made 2 stitches out of 1 stitch. Now I want to work just a couple of rows so that you can see what both of these increases look like once we've gotten a little further along in the fabric. Okay, so I have worked a few rows, and now we can go back in and see how those increases look. So you'll remember the first 2 increases were the yarn over, where I just brought the yarn forward to add an extra loop in between my stitches, and it creates these little holes, which are called eyelets, which in most cases when this yarn over increase is used, you're intentionally creating these eyelets. And then our other increase, the knit front and back, well, you can see what this looks like on the fabric. This creates 2 stitches out of 1 stitch, but it leaves this little almost pearl looking bar on the front of the fabric. And when these are used, that is usually intentional, and the designer will utilize that little decorative element purposefully in the garment design or accessory design. So those are the 2 most basic increases. Practice those and then come back and check out the next tutorial on making your fabric smaller or decreasing.